What's good, Buff Nation? Welcome on in to the first episode of the Sko Show in 2025. Aniello, Piro, Chase Howell, broadcasting live from the Mile High Sports Studios. Hope everybody is doing well out there, and I'm happy to be back in the swing of things, bud.
I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be talking Buffs. I like the offseason stuff. I like talking about player personnel and who they're at in the transfer portal, what the team's going to look like in the spring. And start gearing towards 2025. I think that can be very exciting. I know we're not talking about Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter anymore, although we will have plenty of NFL draft talk going on over the next couple months. But let's talk about the Buffs.
Well, look, we know in this day and age, the Colorado Buffaloes are a 24/7, 365 content conversation machine. So make sure to hit that like button and smash that subscribe button on your Mile High Sports YouTube channel. That way you guys never miss an episode of the Sko Show, of course, powered by our friends over at Peckish. More from them in just a little bit. But where did we leave off? We know that the Buffs got Kaidon Salter in the transfer portal, right? Quarterback out of Liberty, true dual threat guy, going to be here likely for 1 year, although it'll probably be an open quarterback competition. We've got Jaheim Oatis as well. So they've got a couple of big names, but that's only a couple of the dominoes that have fallen so far for CU throughout the course of the early portion of the offseason.
Yeah, I think we talked a lot about Kaidon Salter and Jaheim Oatis. I think those were the two big ones during the last show, which was over 2 weeks ago now at this point. So
I honestly can't even tell you how long ago. To be honest with you.
And I know we talked a little bit about the Alamo Bowl, which we will not discuss ever again. We're not even going to, I don't want to hear the word Alamo.
The Buffs should just boycott it.
Yes.
Like they
never
should just,
play
like,
the
if
Alamo
they get
Bowl
selected for the Alamo Bowl, they should just be like, nah, we're good.
Yeah. I would rather not watch a team playing a bowl game than have to watch the Colorado Buffaloes playing another Alamo Bowl. But since then, they've been adding quite a few different players in the transfer portal, filling a lot of needs. I think particularly linebacker, safety, a lot of the positions that we had talked about going into the offseason, positions that they needed to fill. Got a great wide receiver in Joseph Williams out of there as well. So some more weapons for Kaidon Salter or Julian Lewis. So that they've been adding a couple offensive linemen. They lost an offensive line coach, so we don't know who's going to be coaching the offensive line, but they've been making a few additions that we need to talk about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to Chase's point, thanks for the memories, Travis and Shedeur. I mean, it was absolutely incredible, but I'm excited to see what this CU team is going to be moving forward with the talent that they're going to bring in. And frankly, I think, look, it's going to be hard. Let's address this real quick, too, on the Shedeur and Travis note. You're losing your two best players, right? Like, obviously, the best player in the country, Travis Hunter, who's the, Heisman Trophy winner, and then Shedeur Sanders, who's likely going to be the first quarterback taken in the NFL draft. So it's going to be interesting to see how Colorado tries to navigate with the departure of Travis and Shedeur, but I trust in Coach Prime. I trust in the front office. Do we call it a front office?
Kind of a front office,
right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like teams have general managers now. I know Colorado has a general manager. I know, what is it? Michael Lombardi is Bill Belichick's general manager out there in North Carolina. So we're kind of in this hybrid era of college football where the collegiate aspect of it and the professional aspect are kind of meshing together. But, a ton of names, a ton of different guys that Colorado is going to address. But first and foremost, how do you think Coach Prime and company attack this offseason knowing that they've lost those two guys, right? They've got some positions of need that we've talked about. They've brought some guys in the portal already. But from a leadership perspective, how do you think Colorado goes about that?
Well, you're not going to go find a wide receiver like Travis Hunter. You're not going to go find a cornerback like Travis Hunter, and you're not going to go find a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders. The way that you improve this team or improve over 2024, I think, is also improving in other areas. If you're able to improve the offensive line, if you bring in more depth on the defensive line, you bring in more edge rushers, you bring in a couple of safeties, some of the positions that in 2024 were average to below average. I think if you can level those positions up and then sort of not fill the holes, but obviously bring in some talent at wide receiver, cornerback, and quarterback as well, then I think that's how you improve on 2024. You're not going to just be able to go with the same blueprint that you went with over the last 2 years. You can't rely on a superstar quarterback. You can't rely on a superstar athlete like Travis Hunter. But I think if you continue to improve this team, you continue to improve the depth of this team. I think that's how you get better in 2025.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it is kind of a volume approach, right? But I think Coach Prime, we talked about it, I think, a couple of weeks ago or whenever the last time we did the show. He had that tweet about, like, know the difference between receiving like an offer and a blessing, right? Or a bag and a blessing, rather. And obviously, Colorado's going to pay the guys that they have to pay to get them in here, right? But it's not like, I forget the name of the kid, but someone I think just transferred to A&M. I forget off the top of my head. Like, let's say Quinn Ewers is the example, right?
Mhm.
Because Quinn Ewers, his draft stock probably isn't where a lot of people thought it would be after this year. So he's probably going to transfer out of Texas because they've got Arch Manning, and he's probably going to make $5-6 million from some other, big time college football program across the country. So that's kind of the dynamic and the landscape that we're looking at in college football. But who are some of the guys that you got your eye on here that Colorado's brought into the transfer portal that you think are going to make an impact right away?
I think we got to go to the safety position. I really like Tawfiq Byard.
I was right there on my screen. That's exactly where I was going to go.
That's your number one on the screen. I love that. AP and I are always on the same page.
Sync.
First of all, he's the brother of Kevin Byard, is on Tennessee Titans, the safety, all-pro safety, I believe, or at least a Pro Bowl safety. But the little brother, he has 3 years left of eligibility, and he put up some pretty good numbers last year at South Florida. You want to tell us what those numbers were? You got it pulled up?
Yeah, he was a stud last year. I mean, he's 6'1", 200 pounds, 54 tackles last year, 8.5 tackles for loss as well, a couple of sacks. And this is a guy in some of the research that I was doing, like, he's not like he's coming from a Bama like a Jaheim Oatis was, but this is a guy that South Florida did not want to lose, and a guy that was highly coveted, not just by Colorado, but a lot of different programs across the nation heading into this offseason. So the fact that he chooses Colorado, you talk about losing Travis Hunter, who I know is a cornerback, but you're going to have our guy DJ McKinney out there still. You're getting some really good safety depth and a guy that has a lot of athleticism that I think is going to be able to bode well for this CU team with the versatility that's kind of required in the college football landscape.
We talked about Cam Silman-Craig a lot on this show and what he did for this defense and his ability to play in the box, make tackles in space. I think Byard is the type of guy that can do it. You see that in the tackle numbers. He had 2 sacks this past year as well. So if you need to blitz him, he can do that. I think he's a safety that can play in the box, which is something that they need. The way that they play defense, they needed Cam Silman-Craig last year to make a lot of big tackles. And I think they're going to have Byard do that as well. So I was really excited about him. I thought that they had to go out and get a safety that has produced at the D1 level. And I think they did a great job in doing that with Tawfiq Byard.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with you. And, that's the thing is Cam Silman-Craig, to your point, is a guy that we all know and love, but I think Cam Silman-Craig is going to be an absolute stud at the NFL level. Like whichever team ends up drafting Cam Silman-Craig is going to get a guy with a high work ethic and just a high level, high IQ type of player as well. And that's what Byard kind of reminds me of in regards to his body composition and the way in which he plays. So there's a little bit of a formula that I think you saw work with Colorado last year that they're going to try to replicate in some of these guys they bring in.
Yeah, a little bit taller. Byard's not 5'10", what Cam Silman-Craig is. I think Byard's legitimately over 6 foot, so he's a legitimate pro safety and a guy that will probably be an NFL draft pick if he has a couple of really good years. To switch gears, I think we need to talk a little bit about linebacker, another major position of need this offseason. I think they did a great job of being able to fill that. They brought in 2 of them, AP. Reginald Hughes, who I think we actually discussed quite a bit on the show previously, the transfer out of Jacksonville State, 83 tackles.
Florida boy, another Florida boy, Chase.
And of course, I mean, that seems to be Coach Prime's forte, but 83 tackles, 4.5 sacks at Jacksonville State, a guy that is produced at the D1 level. I think he can come into Colorado and start, but they didn't stop there. They also went out and got Martavius French from UTSA, a guy that has played a lot of football throughout his career. The only reason he has eligibility is this new JUCO rule. Thank you, Diego Pavia, for taking it to court and saying, hey, if I played JUCO, I should still get D1 eligibility. So they go out and get this guy, Martavius French, who I don't know if you saw any of these pictures, AP, but the dude is a grown ass.
Is he? I love that. Just like Jaheim Oatis, man. That's the thing. They got some dogs in here.
Got that big goatee going.
Yeah, I see it right here. Yeah.
We'll make sure DB puts up the photo of this guy because he's a big dude for a linebacker, and I really like what they were able to do there.
Yeah, for sure. And real quick, going back to Reginald Hughes, who I know we touched on. I mean, last year at Jacksonville State, I mean, he was an absolute stud. 83 total tackles, 9.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. He probably left a few out there on the field as well, but a guy that's just a straight up disruptor. And you were asking me the question before we got started, right? Like when you look at an offensive depth chart, you usually go quarterback, wide receiver, running back, offensive line, tight ends, kind of in that order. But you usually start QB and then funnel out to the skill positions from there. I think the heart and soul of this Colorado Buffaloes team in regards to their defensive personality is going to have to start not necessarily on the trenches on the defensive line, but in the middle with that linebacking position. And they got a couple of good ones there in Reginald Hughes and Martavius French. Two awesome names as
Great
well,
names.
by the way. I mean, Martavius French, like that's got some sizzle to it. And then Reginald, like,
yeah, Reginald.
Love that.
It sounds like he goes by Reginald Hughes. I just want to call him Reggie Hughes because Reggie Hughes just rolls straight off the tongue. But French had 80 tackles this past year with UTSA. I think both of these linebackers, which really impresses me, is they're like both 6'2", pushing 250 pounds. These
big
are
boys.
big linebackers. And if you can bring in some speed to also be able to play on third down at the linebacker position, which a guy like Jalen Wester, who they already have, can do. But I think we saw, especially early on this past season in 2024, how much it helped him to have a linebacker like Nakai Hill-Green. He completely changed the dynamic of the defense. After the first couple of weeks, they brought him in to start against Nebraska, and you could tell just how much that defense improved, and how much better they were over 2023 when they didn't really have great linebacker play. So if they can get a couple guys that have had a lot of experience here, I think that's going to make a huge difference on the defense.
And I'm trying to think of a comp of maybe like an NFL team or a college team in years past. But like, here's the thing: what Colorado is going to lose in star power, they're going to make up for in maybe lesser known names that Buff Nation is going to come to know and love over the course of this next season. And I think that's why the impact that the first 2 years of the Coach Prime era cannot be, you can't talk about it highly enough, because what it has done is allowed them to get these guys like Martavius French, get a guy like Reginald Hughes as well, guys that are highly coveted by other Power 4 programs in college football to come to Colorado, right? It's a bit of a domino effect. These are the two guys at linebacker. Talked about some safety position as well. I mean, just because you don't know these names, like if you're a casual college football fan, there's nothing wrong with that. You're going to start to know these guys when we get to next year, because you know what else, Chase? CU's going to be on national TV every week.
That's right. And I think the big thing that we've seen in the transfer portal so far, and maybe they're not as highly ranked on the transfer portal rankings, and a lot of that had to do the past couple of years that they had to bring in almost 40, 50 guys in the transfer portal. And this year they're probably only likely to get around 20, especially in this period. So they're not ranked top 5 like they have been the last couple of years. But I think what they did the last couple of years is they went out and got some guys that were 4 or 5 star recruits that really didn't have what it takes to play at the college football level, usually intangibly. Correct. And intangibly. And I think now they've kind of found a blueprint, and they've identified guys that have produced already in college football. And I think all 3 of the guys that we just talked about have been highly productive already at college football. So I think they have decided that that's kind of the gear that they're going to go. They're going to go find production. They're going to go watch tape, and they're going to go see who's put up tape at the D1 level, at the Power 4 level, but even at the Group of 5 level, which it seems like where they have gotten a lot of these gems, even over the past couple of years. So they're no longer going after those 4-star, 5-star previous guys, which is, I think, could work out.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, man. I mean, some other guys that we've seen, we talked about Martavius French, Taven Coleman could be another guy that's going to be interesting for Colorado.
Or depth on the defensive line, which what you love to see.
Which is great. That's offensive line. We'll save that for another conversation. But, there's a lot of guys out there. And here's what I'll say as well before I tell you about our friends over at Peckish is there's probably some guys that are still playing the college football playoff that haven't thrown their name in the portal yet that Colorado's going to have a chance to get.
Absolutely. We see it once these teams get knocked out, that these guys start to enter the portal. Now, maybe there won't be a ton, but a team like a Penn State or a Notre Dame, and you can sneak in there and maybe get a player. But I think we've already seen them fill a lot of the holes that they wanted to fill. The other linebacker that we didn't mention, Kaidon Salter, little brother of Kaidon Salter, who was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school, hasn't played much at TCU yet, but seems like he has the build at 6'2", 225 pounds, to be able to be a good linebacker at this level. I think he has 3 or even 4 years. I think he has 4 years of eligibility left. So it's always good to see them kind of build some depth behind all these linebackers.
Yeah, I would completely agree. It is a family business.
Of course.
Colorado. It makes a lot of sense. We've seen Colorado bring in brothers before together, whatever it might be. And if it makes sense, Coach Prime's going to do what he can to keep that family together and have them become a part of the Colorado Buffaloes family up there in Boulder. But real quick, speaking of family, let me tell you about our friends over at Peckish, our proud presenting sponsor here on the Sko Show. I ate a lot of Italian food. I ate a lot of Cuban food over the Christmas and New Year period. I'm jealous too. I think I still got some leftovers in my fridge. But you know what? I'm ready for some all-American chicken wings and pizza, and my go-to spot is our friends over at Peckish. They've got 2 locations across Colorado, and I'm sure some of the guys we just talked about, they've probably been to Peckish because, while we can't confirm or deny 100%, that's what I was told from the boss man over there at Peckish, we do know that it's a hot spot for recruits to come and check out and get some grub. So check them out. Elite Pizza, Elite Chicken Wings, 2 locations in Colorado, one up in Boulder on the Hill and down here in the Denver Tech Center right off of I-25 and Bellevue.
I don't even know what to say anymore. We talk about how good this place is. If you haven't tried the wings, they are the best wings in the state of Colorado. I'd put them up against anything.
I would too. I saw Ryan Blackburn, our Denver Nuggets reporter, over the break at one of the Nuggets games, and he came to us, I think, he came with us the last time we went to Peckish. And the first thing the first thing he told me is like, no, how was your holiday? This, that. No, he's like, when are we going to Peckish?
Yeah,
that was the first thing out of his mouth when I saw him. And so it is Ryan Blackburn approved, Coach Prime approved, Travis Hunter approved, Shedeur Sanders approved, and Sko Show approved. So be sure to check out our friends over at Peckish, proud presenting sponsor of the Sko Show. But okay, we've talked about some positions. What else on defense do you think Colorado needs to address in this transfer portal period?
We'll see if they end up filling in some spots at corner. I think they already like what they have on the defensive line. I think they got plenty of depth on the defensive line, and we'll talk about that during our defensive starter show. I think they have enough depth at the edge position as well. They got a lot of players coming back there. Build-in linebacker, great. Corner, I could see them maybe grabbing another corner to fill in for Travis Hunter and maybe grabbing one more safety, but this defense looks like it's pretty much wrapped up, and I like what they got right now.
And I think with what they've got, I agree with you. I think it's going to be open season in the sense of competitions galore, right? You're going to see competitions at every single position, right? There's some guys that you could probably pencil in, that are going to get those starting roles. But for the most part, I think Coach Prime wants everybody on this roster, Corey Phillips included, when he comes into recruiting and signing some of these guys. They want these guys to be young and hungry and determined and not just have everything handed to them on a silver platter, which I think a lot of people sometimes think, because you're playing with Colorado, everything's just kind of given to you on that silver platter. Like, these guys have to earn their keep and earn the respect of Coach Prime and the coaching staff as well. So I am excited about it. I'll close with this as well, because I was thinking about it as we were getting ready for the show today.
Wait, do we want to talk about offense before we close, or there's a couple of offensive line guys we could talk about? Are
we doing offense in a separate one?
No. Let's touch on offensive line additions. We'll go over the offensive starters in its own show.
Correct. So talk to me. But one thing I wanted to say, I was actually thinking about someone that writes for us at the site. There's a lot of casuals that don't understand the depth and the process that goes into building this roster. Like, people think it's just because it's Coach Prime, you can go out there, put out a cute tweet and get all these guys. Like, there is levels to this stuff. Check out they call it Coach Prime on Amazon Prime. I watched the first episode last night of season 3, and you get a really cool kind of inside scoop as to what that looks like as well. But let's move over to the offense. What you got for me?
Couple of offensive linemen. They don't currently have an offensive line coach, as we mentioned at the top of the show, and we'll see. I'm sure that news will come over the next week or two. But Aki Ogunbayi from
another cool name,
Texas A&M, a guy that has played a little bit at Texas A&M over the last few years. Not a full-time starter, has started quite a few games, but not a full-time starter at A&M. He's a grad transfer. He wants one more year. You gotta love the size, and I think what you pick up on when you go through all these offensive line transfers is these are some big dudes. But Aki Ogunbayi, 6'3", 350 pounds there at the guard position. So
big boy.
They're bringing in some serious size. Ryan McGill, who is the center that they brought in, I think he's 320. I don't have it pulled up right now in front of me, but another big dude at the center position.
You're talking about McGill is 6'2", 308 is what he's listed at. You're talking from Louisiana Tech.
Yep.
So that's another big boy as well. And, our friends over at Peckish will make sure they put on some good weight as well.
Yeah. These offensive line transfers, they're bringing in some beef for sure. Gone are the days of these 280 and 290 pound offensive linemen, which CU was doing for quite a long time. The other offensive transfer that we need to talk about before we wrap up this show, and I don't think we got to talk about him before. I know we talked about him as a potential prospect, but Joseph Williams.
Yes.
The transfer out of Tulsa, the wide receiver, a guy that I'm super excited about. I don't think people realize how good of a true freshman season he just had at Tulsa, the type of teams that were going after him in the transfer portal. And I think he's a guy that probably gets here and starts immediately. But 30 catches, 588 yards, and 5 touchdowns during his true freshman season. He averaged 19.6 yards per catch. He finished his debut season first or second in every receiving category at Tulsa. The other stat that I have for you, AP, he ranked 6th nationally among all true freshman receivers in yardage, and he posted the 2nd highest PFF grade among all first-year receivers behind anybody? Jeremiah Smith, Ohio State. So it was Jeremiah Smith and then Joseph Williams out of the true freshman receivers, according to Pro Football Focus.
Well, and also just a guy in Joseph Williams with an extremely dynamic athletic background. You're talking about a guy that multi-sport athlete in high school, ran track, also played both sides, both ways when he was in high school, playing some of the secondary receiver, also played quarterback. So you're talking about a guy that has high level IQ, that has the intangibles to go with it. Only 6'2". I say that only, that's like double my height. But at the end of the day, it's a guy that relies on his burst, relies on his athleticism. Who do you think is there a comp on the Buffs roster from the last couple of years that you think he plays like?
Well, he's not going to be as dynamic, but when you're talking about an athletic receiver that's 6'2", that has great burst, that can get open, that has great yards after the catch, I think you'd be talking about a Travis Hunter type of guy.
For sure. And we've even seen other guys that have come in, right? Jimmy Horn Jr. was here for a minute. Will Shepard coming in last year, making an impact right away. We're going to find out with the depth that Colorado has at their skill positions, how they're going to be able to maximize that. And it's going to be up to Kaidon Salter. It's going to be up to Julian Lewis, whoever the starting quarterback is, to kind of maximize the talent that they have around them. But one thing is for sure, Chase, the offensive line is going to be much improved. You still got big boy Jordan Seaton protecting the blind side, and you're going to up the ante at the skill positions.
Yeah, and I think they've already done that. I think Kaidon Salter has to be excited about Joseph Williams and the type of weapons that he's going to have.
What about the running game?
Great question.
I'm such an old school football fan. I love running the darn ball, but the landscape of college football tells me otherwise.
I think what we've seen over the past couple of years, no matter who is toting the rock, you need a good offensive line that's going to be able to open up the holes. So the run game depends on these offensive linemen, and they're very clearly bringing in some beef. And yes, you might like to see them go after one of these top running backs in the transfer portal, be willing to spend some money on one of these guys, but the fact of the matter is they don't lose any of the running backs that played last year. We thought we might see Dallin Hayden enter the portal. He has not yet. Isaiah Augusta will be back, and I think we saw enough flashes from Isaiah over the past year that he can be a very capable running back.
I agree.
You got a freshman running back from last year, Micah Welch, that we saw a lot of flashes over the past year or so. So I think you have some guys at the running back position. What really matters is, can this offensive line open up some holes for them?
And I think they will be able to do that. One more thing that I'll say, cover your ears, Danny Bailey. I kind of trust Pat Shurmur.
Ooh.
I kind of trust Pat Shurmur just a little bit.
Yeah, it will be really interesting to see how he changes up this offense.
I think a year under his belt at the college level with the high level talent that they had kind of gets his mind running in regards to what he can and can't do with the Buffs at the college level as well.
You know what really opens up your run game, AP? When you have a dual threat quarterback that has ran for over 1,000 yards in his college career. And
I'm guessing,
according to Pro Football Focus, it's been the best running quarterback in college football over the past couple of years. If you have a quarterback that can run it like Kaidon Salter can, I think that could open up some holes for the running backs as well.
Yeah, versatility, that is the name of the game with Kaidon Salter, and I think you're going to see Colorado maybe even be a little bit more dynamic on offense this year. I think they were able to rely so heavily on Deion Sanders and Travis Hunter to kind of open up some holes for, the Jimmy Horn Jr.'s, the Omarion Millers, the Draylon Millers, a couple of guys that'll still be here as well. But I think now that you have kind of this landscape, you can understand how you kind of want to fill in some holes and paint your masterpiece along the way. So I am stoked. I'm upset that we got to wait so long until Colorado gets back on the football field. But Coach Prime, Corey Phillips and company, they're getting after it here in the transfer portal. So make sure to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. Sko Show Season 3 underway here at the Mile High Sports Studios. But anything else you want to get off the chest?
No, I think keep paying attention to the content that we're going to produce. We're going to talk about the offensive starters, the defensive starters, and then we're going to be talking a lot about the NFL draft, I think, over the next.
Yeah, we're going to try to get some guests lined up for that, kind of break down the Shedeur Travis dynamic. I'm going to make this promise publicly on the show so I can hold myself accountable, but it's also because it's going to happen. we're going to get some players on the show.
Love it.
We're going to get some interviews with some players, personnel, different staff members, all that good stuff, and try to bring you guys that insight into the Colorado Buffaloes as year 3 of the Coach Prime era is upon us. But for Chase Howell, follow my boy at Chase Howell _. I'm at Media by AP. Smash that like button, hit that subscribe button on your Mile High Sports YouTube channel. That way you guys never, ever miss an episode of the Sko Show and all the other incredible content we have here on the channel. And also, most importantly, check out our friends over at Peckish. But for Chase Howell, I'm AP. Long off season ahead of us, but I'm excited for what's to come. Make sure to subscribe. We'll be back at it again right here on the Sko Show and Sko Buffs.
Sko Buffs.